Justice forced and ultimately served. The Duncan case is what we were talking about, incorporated the Sixth Amendment right to jury trial into the 14th Amendment due process clause. Everybody that gets charged, right, I told you they have due process. What does that mean?
There could be certain steps before you.
That's your right, yeah, that's your right. Due process means you have rights throughout that trial, and we have to adhere to those rights, okay? Speedy trial, you have a right to an attorney, all that stuff. Required access to jury trial for all defendants. If you request a jury, you have the right to request a jury trial as a defendant, right? You can have a jury sitting there, or you can not and have a judge decide your fate, right? Required access to jury trial for all defendants who would have had the right if charged in federal court. Case highlights, let's see, prosecutorial and judicial discretion can complicate the legal process. Bail and pretrial release. What is bail? What do you think it is? It's a guarantee, right? That's one of your rights. You have the right to bail. You have a right to a bond hearing, right? So they're going to decide whether you can bond out of jail or not. Bail is the guarantee. So it can be monetary, it can be property. Your parents can sign over their house as a guarantee that you're going to show up for court. I've had one of those bounce, right? He got his parents to sign him out and he bounced. So guess what? Parents lost their house. Can you imagine that? Just to get him out of jail. And all this is a bail that gives you, it allows you to be out of jail with a guarantee that you will show up when it comes court time, right? There are cases where the prosecution argues that they're a flight risk or that they're too dangerous to be out, and they'll deny them bail. But for the most part, they'll grant you bail. But depending on flight risk and all of that, they decide how much. So if you're ever wondering why somebody's bail is only $2,000 and some of them are $250,000, it usually depends on the crime itself, okay? Amount of bail is determined by a judge, mandated by law. He does follow law when he has the bail set. Bail or bond security forfeited if the defendant fails to appear, like the property. Eighth Amendment states that excessive bail shall not be required. So you have a right to bail, right? It also says in there that we can't unduly put a bunch of money on you. Like if you got somebody that works at McDonald's, we can't put $1 million bail on them, you know, that kind of thing. It has to be something achievable, but like I said, it does depend on the crime, right? The heinousness of the crime. Judiciary Act of 1789, the statutory right of federal defendants to have bail set in non-capital cases. Today, most state constitutions grant absolute right to bail in non-capital cases. So if it's not a capital case, what does that mean?
Adult murder.
Murder is considered a capital offense, yes. Bail today takes on many forms. We talked about it possibly being a property bond. You see that one down on the second to last. There's such thing as a cash bond. There's a citation release. Release on own recognizance. What do you think that means? If the judge says they say ROR as an abbreviation of that. Release on recognizance means we think that you can be held accountable to yourself, and we're not going to have a monetary amount set on you. So you're signing as yourself, saying I will show up for court, and they're taking your word on that, right? Which makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, if it's somebody that lives here in Bay Minette, they work here, their family's here and all that, then most likely they're going to show up for court, right? If it's not a serious crime. Surety bond, money put up by third parties such as a bail bond. You see those everywhere, right? Bail bondsmen, you always see them around the jails too. Like down there, you'll see that all the businesses around a jail is always bail bondsmen, right? What do, you think? How do they make their money?
They interest your bond.
Right. It's usually 15%. So if it's $1,000 bond, you're going to pay the bondsman $150, right? 15% of $1,000. You're going to pay him $150, And for that, he's gonna sign his name saying he will make sure you're in court, right? So when you go and show up for court, they release him from the bond and he's made $150. You don't get your $150 back, right? What happens if they don't show up for court?
Don't you have to pay the whole thing?
The bondsman has to pay the $1,000, right? Because he's the one that signed, surety bond, right? And that's when the bounty hunters come into play. Most bondsmen do their own bounty hunting, right? So if this guy doesn't show up, they will send him a letter saying you're on the hook for the $1,000, right? We're going to give you 15 days to pay that. So they're thinking, okay, I got 15 days to find this guy and get him to court or get him back in jail.
I know somebody that's husband is a bounty hunter,
Mhm.
but he got another job too. But I asked why he got another job because I thought like bounty hunters get paid good.
They get a percentage. It's like you get paid on commission with that kind of job, so it's probably feast or famine. It's probably a roller coaster job where you get paid a lot a couple times and you don't on other times. Now you could grow your hair out and have a TV show and call yourself Dog the Bounty Hunter. Then you can make some cash, right?
Get your whole family involved?
Get your whole family involved and then have a fight and get divorced. Discretionary bail setting. Theoretical purpose of bail is to ensure accused person appears in court, right? That's the whole purpose behind bail. Okay, I'm gonna put money on this so we can make sure you make it to court. Magistrate required to set bail at a level calculated to guarantee defendants present. Decisions regarding amount of bail neither random nor arbitrary. They do follow statutory law on what the bail should be. Judges must consider certain criteria when determining bail. Seriousness of the crime, and I told you, depends on what they did, right? So if somebody shoplifted a pack of underwear, right? Or somebody broke into a house and sexually assaulted somebody. Two different things, right? So the bail's gonna be different on both those individuals, correct? Make sense? Seriousness of the crime, prior criminal record, they're gonna do what's called a pre-sentence investigation, during that investigation sometimes, and they'll do a bond investigation too, and prior criminal history plays a big deal in that. So if somebody's been arrested for burglary, we look at his record and this is his third burglary, bond's gonna be high. And the strength of the state's case.